Thank you everyone for joining us today. Welcome to Ask the Expert. If you're joining us on YouTube, thank you for stopping by. We would really appreciate if you would subscribe to our channel for more videos on all things aphasia. This is Ask the Expert, a series where experts will be answering your questions related to aphasia. I'll be your moderator for this hour-long session. My name is Jen. I'm part of the team at the National Aphasia Association. This year, we are celebrating 35 years of support, providing access to research, education, rehabilitation, therapeutic, and advocacy services to individuals with aphasia and their care partners. Today, we are joined by Brooke Lang from Integrative Reconnective Aphasia Therapy. Brooke is a speech-language pathologist and telepractice aphasiologist. She's also the host of our summer virtual series, How to Build Your Own Home program. If that is something of interest to you, please feel free to find more information on aphasia.org/online-events. I'll be putting that in the description box below. Brooke will be talking to us today about affordable ways to build a home practice program. Then we will open up the floor to those in our live audience for questions. So Brooke, thank you so much for being a part of this series.
Absolutely, my pleasure, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I'm actually just going to hand it off to Brooke. But again, if anyone in our live audience has questions, please put them in the Q&A chat.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint so you guys can see what we're talking about here. All right, I think everybody should be able to see that okay. So again, thanks again to the National Aphasia Association for having me. I'm really honored to be here, and I hope that you guys learned something today. I just wanted to quickly review what we will be covering during today's discussion before we go ahead and dive in. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the importance of practice when it comes to aphasia rehabilitation and why it is, in fact, so important. I'm also going to talk about how you can actually use your own environment as a therapeutic platform. And we'll talk about some specific ways, and I'm going to give you a good handful of examples of how you can do this. I'm also going to talk about why variety in a home program is really crucial for sticking to the program and for ongoing success. And then I'm also going to share how creating a schedule and a daily routine can really help to hold yourself accountable and allow for a stronger commitment towards your daily practice program. So let's get to it. So why is practice important? Now, I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard of the word neuroplasticity, but in case you haven't, it's just a fancy word for your brain's ability to adapt or to change from some sort of experience. And aphasia therapy, we know that aphasia therapy helps to promote neuroplasticity. It allows our brains to actually rewire and rebuild neural connections. So there are two people, Klein and Jones, who have several principles of neuroplasticity. And one of them states that if you don't use it, you lose it. And kind of as it says in the name, if you're not practicing your communication daily in some way, shape, or form, then those communication skills can decline. And sort of related to that, if you use it, you can improve it. So the more you communicate, the better your communication gets. I always tell my patients, talking is the best therapy to improve your talking. And I mean, it's true. So this is why aphasia therapy and ongoing practice is really important and beneficial. Now, as I'm sure a lot of you have experienced and are aware of, unfortunately, insurance does not really allow for you all to recover as completely as you can. It really doesn't allow for those maximal outcomes. You guys, in my opinion, are discharged way too early, way before you've reached your desired outcomes. So, and here's the thing, we also know that people with aphasia, they can absolutely keep getting better. if they keep working at it for many years after stroke or brain injury. But you likely don't want to continue to pay for those services for the rest of your life. Maybe you don't want to participate in therapy for the rest of your life, understandably so. So what other options are there? And this is going to kind of be the main focus of what I discussed with you guys today. And I hope that you learn something from. So with a little bit of creativity and some support, you all can absolutely take control of your recovery and build your own program. And it's really about pursuing what I like to call self-driven therapy. So you incorporate a variety of speech and language tasks into those day-to-day tasks that you're already doing. But it's really important for that practice to have meaning and to be purposeful. The person with aphasia really needs to see value in what they're doing, or they're likely not going to continue to be motivated to practice. So that's something really important to consider when you're coming up with your program. Again, my hope is that by the end of this, you all have a good handful of ideas that I've given you, or that you've created on your own from some of the things we talked about today, and that you feel empowered to create your own programs, whether they're newly created activities or whether there's some sort of adaptation from something that you're already doing, and that you're really motivated to build your own program and incorporate your interests and your goals. So let's talk a little bit about using our environment as a platform. So a simple way to start creating and finding new ways to practice is using your environment. The goal here and the secret is really trying to make these daily tasks therapeutic and without making it feel like therapy. That's where you get the biggest bang for your buck. And another added benefit of using your own environment as your therapeutic platform is that it allows for like built-in generalization. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you think about it, most times in most situations, when you get therapy, you're in a room, a clinic room, or in the hospital, you're getting therapy and there's white walls, you're sitting across from your speech therapist, one-on-one, there's limited visual distractions, there's limited auditory distractions, really doesn't represent our natural environment, right? That's just kind of not the way the world is. So what happens is sometimes the skills that we're working on in our therapy rooms are not always being transferred outside to our real life. And so if we are practicing these skills in our natural environments, in a variety of settings with a variety of people, then the likelihood of those skills improving and staying that way is even better. So again, I think you get some more bang for your buck here. So what are some examples of how we can actually make our own environments at home therapeutic? So one way we can do this is find a room in your house, pick a room, find a couple objects, and generate an action or a verb associated with those objects. So I'm a big proponent of verbs. If you work with me at all, you know that. They are the core of our sentences and they're really important to work on. So you'll hear me say that a couple of times today and mention verbs. But you know, if you're in the bedroom and you find a couple items like your bed, you could say sleep, lamp, turn on, chair, sit. If you have trouble saying it, you could even gesture an action of what you do with the item. Consider picking a different room each day. Another thing you can do, almost everybody has an iPhone these days or an iPad, taking pictures. Pull up a picture in your camera roll or even a video. Talk about what's happening. What's the person doing or where are they? What are they feeling? What are they wearing? You know, where is it taking place? Any of that sort of stuff. You can even use that as a conversational starter with, you know, a communication partner. Hey, look what, you know, I see here, or I'm going to show you this picture and you can talk about it. Maybe when you're making that morning cup of coffee, or you are perhaps cooking dinner or watching a loved one cook dinner, try to talk about what they're doing. You know, they're boiling water, pouring the pasta into the water, turning on the heat, stirring the pasta. I think I did those steps a little bit out of order, but you get the point. So again, talking about what you're doing and, you know, somebody even facilitating that is great practice. And again, you're not going out of your way to do it. It's happening right there in front of you. You can also talk about the ingredients being used in the recipe. You know, attempt to read some of the keywords on the recipe card or in the cookbook, or even the nutritional facts. I thought this recipe kind of sounded fun. So again, you don't have to read the whole recipe card, but pull out a word or two and see if you can read it. Or perhaps highlight some of the verbs and talk about those. Another simple task that you're probably already doing, and maybe you didn't realize that it's therapeutic or didn't consider it to be therapeutic, but it absolutely is, sending texts or sending emails. Do it with a different person each day, just again, to get that variety. And by doing this, you know, you're not only practicing your written communication skills, but you're also maintaining those social relationships that are so important, and you're continuing to build your support network. So those are just a couple ideas. Now, in any home program, it's really important to have variety. Variety in your practice is crucial. Now, I don't know about all of you, but I know that I have personally thrown in the towel with a couple of my exercise programs that I tried because I was bored. It wasn't challenging enough, or I was tired of the same old thing. It was kind of redundant, so I quit. You know, I needed variety. I needed something different. I needed to be challenged. I probably needed some unpredictability. And if you think about it, aphasia rehab is exercise for your brain. So in order to make that exercise regimen desirable, there really needs to be variety and even some unpredictability. You can even consider, and I have some patients who do this, incorporate your physical program and your mental activity into one. So go for a walk and talk about what you're seeing. Talk about what the people are doing. Oh, she's hitting a ball. He's shooting a basketball. She's running. Again, if you can't say it, try to gesture it. Every time you do a bicep curl, perhaps generate the name of a fruit. I know it sounds kind of crazy. Maybe that's not something you want to do outside of your own home personal gym, but pick a new category with each exercise. You know, you're getting added practice, and sometimes pairing that physical work with the mental work, it helps both. So another idea, consider taking a task that you are perhaps already doing in therapy, or in a workbook, or even in an app, and try doing that activity in a different modality. So when I say modality, I'm talking about those communication modalities that are impacted when you have aphasia, right? So verbal expression or talking, understanding or auditory comprehension, reading, and this is reading out loud as well as reading comprehension, and then writing. So if a task that you're working on, let's say it simply requires you to name a picture, okay? How about you try writing the picture, the name of the picture next time? You're working then on your written modality. If you are being asked to read a short paragraph and answer some questions, maybe a friend or a loved one can read that paragraph to you. You're then getting the auditory input and working on your auditory comprehension, and then you can answer some questions about it. So again, that way you're getting at all those modalities, and they don't exist on their own. They're all working together. So writing helps your talking, talking helps reading, reading helps writing, etc. So it's really important to consider all those modalities. Another thing is to think about how you can make the tasks easier if they're too difficult, or more challenging if the task becomes too easy. Kind of finding that happy spot. So this is really what aphasia therapy is about. And this is what I tell my students. It's about manipulating the stimuli, whatever that is, whether it's words, sounds, sentences, pictures, but adjusting it and constantly adjusting it and changing it to meet the needs of the person with aphasia. So kind of a simple way to think about that without becoming a speech pathologist yourself. Think simple words, basic sentences, shorter sentences and basic sentences, and more familiar words. Those will be the easiest. On the other hand, those longer words or multisyllabic words, more complex sentence structures, and less familiar words, those are going to be your more challenging stimuli. So play around with it. And again, it's another way to change things a bit, add some variety and keep things fresh. I also wanted to mention that you can take a look at our activities in our Working Outside the Workbook. It provides a variety of tasks and there's step-by-step instructions. There's ways to modify the tasks, make them easier, make them more difficult. There's different cueing strategies. These are really great for, they're great tasks to do with a care partner, and there's also some that can be done independently. But really the opportunities are endless. And I hope you're starting to see that that potential for variety is kind of unlimited. This is just, I just wanted to show you all an example of one of the activities in our workbook, and you can kind of see what's involved. So we talk about the goals that are being addressed by working on this task, the instructions and the specific steps. There's a couple examples. There's ways to modify the tasks, and again, some cueing strategies. At the end of the workbook, there's stimuli for each task. And then I sort of appreciate the real life application that's in that blue box, because I think it can be hard sometimes. Some of the tasks that we're working on, it can be hard to make a connection to, okay, how is this going to help me be a better communication partner? You know, how is comparing an apple and a grape really going to help me talk to my friend about the football game? And so that needs to be explained. And again, it goes back to, if the person with aphasia doesn't understand why they're doing what they're doing, they don't see the value or the purpose in it, they're not going to keep doing it. And who can blame them? So that's just an example of our workbook. And then I wanted to kind of go over a few tasks that you can do with flashcards, because I feel like I've heard more than once, especially early on in the process, flashcards are something that everybody kind of buys to, you know, start their own practice. It's kind of it's common sense, they're accessible, they're cheap. So when we've gone through that deck of cards and we can name our items, what else can we do with them? So here I go again with my verbs, but I can't help it. So instead of, let's say that apple is our flashcard, give a couple verbs for what you can do with an apple instead of just naming apples. So you could say bite, you could say slice, you could say peel, pour. I like to dip mine in peanut butter. And again, you'll see I naturally kind of just gesture. That's another great way. Gestures a lot of times can help to not only supplement your speech, but it can help to elicit speech. Sometimes when you gesture, the words will come out. So give it a shot. That can be another modality that you work on. Put the word in a sentence. You know, apples are red. I sliced apples with a knife. whatever however long you're able to do, whatever you're able to give. And again, consider writing the sentence. Doesn't all have to be verbal. Talk about the item, generate features related to it. In this case, you can talk about what it looks like, what it tastes like, where you might find it, what you think of when you see it, those sort of things. You can also work on your category identification. So an apple is a fruit. And then maybe to take it a step further, you can talk about other fruits. What other fruits are there? Grapes, bananas, mangoes, and see how many you can generate in that category, in case you didn't get it with the bicep curl. And then questions. So I think people with aphasia are so used to being on the other end of question asking. They're so used to being asked questions and having to answer that sometimes it can be really hard for them to ask questions and formulate those questions. So this is a great way to start working on that. And there's so many different forms. It relates a lot to syntax and grammar, but you can put apple in a question form. Do you like apples? Can you buy apples? Just another way to use a simple flashcard. And I'm sure you guys can probably think of a bunch more. So it's also, as you guys can realize, you can really incorporate any kind of communication task really with a different person each day. And whether it's with a person or not, but from sending emails to working on flashcards, listen to music, get involved in research, volunteer, call a friend. There can be a bunch of things that you plan to do each day. And that's kind of what this next part is about. I think it's really important to have a schedule and a routine. I think it gives you a sense of purpose. A lot of times my patients with aphasia sort of feel like they've lost their sense of purpose. The carpet's been ripped out from under you. What do I do now? This was not my plan. And so I think, having that sense of security and knowing sort of what to expect throughout the day can be really helpful. Because probably before, your job was giving you that sense of purpose, right? And now I think it's important to sort of think of, well, my recovery, my rehab is now my full-time job. So why not create a schedule and a routine that addresses our goals, provides you with a purpose for your day, gives you some sense of control, and ultimately a sense of accomplishment at the completion of your day. So I think, again, to help you commit to this, don't just think it in your head, write it down or put it in your phone. Write down that schedule and check off those items. I must do this kind of more than I'd like to admit because my 8-year-old daughter, I have taught her writing to-do lists and making the little boxes and checking it off. You get a sense of gratification out of it. Whatever method works for you, go for it and use it and stick with it. And a huge part, I think, of being able, I kind of have touched on this already, but being able to maintain a program and continue to follow a robust home program is holding yourself accountable. And I think the crucial piece to that, again, is having that purpose, knowing why you're doing what you're doing, and occasionally reminding yourself of those reasons. And, since your recovery has become sort of your new full-time job, I encourage you to also see if you can find ways to measure your progress and acknowledge your ups and downs. Take pictures or even videos of what you're working on, what you've been doing, and share it with people. Share it with your friends. Share it on your social media page. One of my young stroke survivors came up with an awesome idea of creating a time capsule. And she decided, and we've tried to get a lot of other people involved in this as well. And you can visit our website to kind of see what we're doing. But she wanted to make a video of herself and document where she is now, what she's able to do, what she's working on, and what she's not yet able to do. In a year from now, looking back at that video or that document and seeing, wow, I've really come a far way, you know. And I think it's hard for you guys to see that it's slow progress. And you all know that better than anybody. But I think looking at it from over a year, you can really see how all your hard work is really paying off. And wow, I did actually get better over this past year. So such a cool idea. And I hope other people maybe get involved with it. And lastly, allow yourself to have days where not all the items are checked off on your list, and let it be okay. You know, you're not perfect. This is a tough job. And I think you guys need to reward yourself no matter how big or small the progress is, no matter how big or small those victories are. Because as you all know better than anybody, the road to aphasia recovery is a tough one. It's no easy feat, and encouragement and support is such a crucial element for ongoing success. So thank you again for joining me. I really hope everybody, learned a little something today. And if you have any questions or, wanted to discuss any of this further, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. You can reach us at our website, or you can email me directly. That's fine too. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Brooke, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you recognize that things like asking questions is so important and it can be so challenging. So for those in our audience, I'm wondering what areas you find challenging in your speech. We'd love to hear from you in our chat box. And for those of you visiting us on YouTube, comment below. What are your greatest speech challenges, and what are some victories in your speech that you can celebrate? Okay, Brooke, an audience member has asked us about your workbook. I've personally downloaded this workbook and I think it's wonderful. So I wanted to quickly pull up your website.
The workbook is available on our website, and it's also available on Amazon.
Wonderful. And I think, you have like a trial version of it, or a?
So, yep, you can go, if you go to, it's in the shop part over, yeah.
Oops, it's a little bit
the
off.
icons are a little bit off from, but yep.
So
you can get a free activity just so you can kind of get a sense of what it looks like, and another example of an activity. Yeah, that's that second one there. It says it's free in the top corner, and you can just add it to your cart and then check it out and see kind of if you like the setup, the style. If you have any feedback about what you wish was in it, or what's not great about it, let me know, because I'm hoping to make another one, and always love the feedback.
And so this one to the left is the full version, correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Great. And so I'll be putting that website in the chat and also in the description box on YouTube.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go into some of our pre-submitted questions. Again, if those in our live audience want to ask questions, it will really help us if you can put those into the Q&A chat. So one of my first questions is about the role of family in aphasia recovery. Can you talk a little bit about how family members can help in aphasia recovery and developing this home practice program?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the content that I went over today, hopefully some of that answered that. But I mean, family is huge. Just in terms of even helping them to come up with new ideas, or getting them set up, or helping them to create their program. And I think it's important to recruit family, perhaps, that is not maybe the sole caregiver. A lot of times our caregivers already have a lot going on. There's a lot of burden there. And so if you can recruit other people or other friends It's a great way to get other people involved and kind of get them to understand aphasia a little bit better, have them collaborate with your speech pathologist. I know we've done that before, because again, I think there's a lot of pressure on the caregivers, and I think to keep them as husband and wife or daughter and father rather than therapist and student can be kind of an added benefit. But again, just incorporate things into your environment. You don't have to get fancy. You don't need fancy apps. You know, you saw how many things you can do with a flashcard. Forget flashcards, pull up some Google images. You know, the internet is, I don't know what we did before it, but there's tons of resources on there as well. But again, make sure that the work is meaningful and not just busy work.
Let me quickly share my screen for my next question. What suggestions do you have for family members who are trying to encourage someone with aphasia to practice, and maybe that person is really not feeling it?
Yeah, we get this one a lot. And I think it's a fine balance, right? You want to be there to support the person with aphasia and encourage them, but ultimately they're the ones who have to do the hard work. They're the ones who have to be motivated to do it. And so we as the outsiders can't do that for them. And if they don't want to work on it and somebody else is just pushing, you know, it's not always a great outcome. So I think rather than pushing certain things, find what gets them going, find what motivates them. Again, sort of put the language piece to the side, and once you find that thing, then make it sort of therapeutic. You know, I think, again, it has to come from the person themselves, ultimately, otherwise it can be a tough battle.
So I know you addressed this next question a little bit in your presentation, but someone had asked, can I do home practice by myself? And I think the concern was there was no one there to make corrections or help this person find words, or even just notice when something's been said incorrectly.
Yeah, it's a valid concern. So, you know, one comment is perhaps finding somebody. I mean, again, the virtual world has certainly opened up. Just because you don't have somebody with you in person, there's so much that can be done on FaceTime or on Zoom. There's so many groups going on right now. You can work on your communication skills. But the other piece of that is keep practicing. I would say even without the feedback, that's okay, because it's still practicing. And again, talking is the best therapy for talking. So you're still working on it. You know, you're not going to do harm. And use whatever resources you have. I have patients who will be reading something, they get stuck on the pronunciation of a word, and they put it in their phone. It says it back to them. They practice saying it. You know, all of that. So use resources available to you. If you get stuck, see if you can work it out, but I wouldn't worry about the feedback. Just keep working on it. And kudos to you.
What suggestions do you have for home practice that targets apraxia? And we also have a live question that's quite similar. How do you suggest you blend apraxia and aphasia with this home program? What tips do you have?
So, in case for anybody who's listening who's not sure of the difference, apraxia is more of a speech disorder due to motor planning, motor programming challenges. Basically, your brain has trouble communicating to your mouth how to make the sounds. Aphasia is more of the language disorder, word finding, difficulties with understanding, reading, writing, formulating sentences. So the apraxia piece certainly makes it a little bit trickier. It depends what level of severity I would say the apraxia is, and what level they're working at. So, I mean, they could simply be at the sound level. Maybe they're able to get out some words. Maybe your hope is to get them to communicate more in sentences. I work a lot on increasing syllables, starting out with one syllable, going to two, and going to three, but using the same starter. So for example, but, butter, butterfly, and getting them to kind of sort through that and build it up. Consider gestures. They're really important. And again, sometimes with that apraxia, those can be a little bit apraxic too, a little bit trouble coordinating and getting them going. But once you clean those up, sometimes the speech comes with it. And I always like to have, for my patients with apraxia, even as severe as they might be, I work on sentences right away. Start with vowels, but then go into pronouns. I, you, he, she, we, they all have a vowel in them. So even if they can just say ah, e, oo, fine. And then start having them pair it with a verb. So I eat, oo eat, he eats, and then kind of get them to build on that. Again, if you kind of anchor it with the vowels and then get them to build on it. And I think visual support, so writing down what you're trying to have them say, can be helpful with patients with apraxia as well.
So we get, at National Aphasia Association, we get many questions about primary progressive aphasia. We've had people share that therapy doesn't really help them. And so in those situations, what are your thoughts maybe about home practice for primary progressive aphasia?
I think if you're willing to work on it, I think you have to look at it from a different side. I think if your goal is to sort of maximize your communication and maintain where you are, that extra work should help you prolong that and keep you at the level that you're at for as long as you can be. And again, even more so, it's important there for everything to be personally relevant. You don't want to be working on the names of tools and animals if that has zero interest to you. If you're into gardening and bike riding, make it relevant and always sort of prepare for incorporating those same items into an alternative form of communication, like a device. So it should sort of overlap so that you're starting to prepare them for that progression that is sort of inevitable. But I have had a few patients with PPA, and I think they have some good success with home practice.
Thank you. Our next question is about fluent aphasia and phonemic paraphasias. This person asks, what recommendations do you have for a person who has fluent aphasia and phonemic paraphasias? And so maybe can you also talk a little bit about what these things are?
Yeah. So people sometimes use the word fluent aphasia or Wernicke's aphasia. It's more the aphasia where somebody's talking in sentences. Again, it's fluent speech, but a lot of times there's jargon. There's words that don't make sense. There's a lot of sound level errors, and they may not always be aware that they're making these errors. So they have a full conversation in this jargon. And there might be some things that make sense as well. Usually those individuals also have more trouble with their comprehension. And phonemic paraphasias it's a fancy word for those sound level errors. So if they say fable for table, that's a phonemic paraphasia. So in terms of what can you work on, again, depends on severity. A lot of times with this group of people, it's awareness and insight into their difficulties. Again, is sometimes limited and plays a role. So that needs to sort of be incorporated into the program. A good way to do that is to always have visual support. Even when you're explaining instructions for a task, jot down those keywords. It'll help reinforce and say them as you write them. Then you're getting the auditory and they're getting the visual. I also like with these individuals to help with awareness. When they say something that doesn't make sense, I write it down. You said this. Is this what you meant? And they'll look at it because a lot of times their reading recognition, their reading comprehension is better than the auditory. And they'll be a little bit more aware. That's not what I meant. Sometimes then they can fix it, but it starts to make them more aware auditorily as well. So always lots of visual feedback. And then, as I mentioned sort of before with the apraxia stuff, working on syllables and increasing syllables for a different reason is really good for these patients. A lot of times those paraphasias are more because it's not just about their sounds being all jumbled, it's they don't even know the syllable structure for a word. And that's actually the foundation. Before you get to sounds, syllable structure needs to be strong and established. So like if I have them say but, they might say bulagoo. And so getting them to start to control what's coming out of their mouth and be aware of what's coming out of their mouth, one chunk at a time and slowly increasing it can really help. Forgetting what the sounds sound like and just working on those syllables. Even if they say dela, balagoo, perfect. Then a lot of times once you get the syllables figured out, the sounds start to actually fall in place. There's still some cleaning up that needs to be done, but syllables is sort of number one for those guys. That makes sense.
Yes, thank you. So what suggestions do you have for apps, software, or websites?
So great question, because that's, you know, kind of becoming a big thing. Probably a lot of you have heard of constant therapy. That's a great one. Tactus Therapy has a nice collection of apps, and Lingraphica. Those are probably my top three. You know, constant therapy is nice because it gives that ongoing progress. It can adjust the tasks. Your speech pathologist can be in charge of your account and assign a task, different tasks to you and keep track of how you're doing and then adjust the difficulty level, which is nice. It's sort of, you know, a lot of them have free trials or like a free light version. I recommend doing that first to get a feel for it, see if it's something that you like. Those are probably the top ones. And they're not, there's a lot of options for like subscriptions. Some of them are just a one-time payment and you have it forever. But again, it starts to become a little bit redundant. So when you kind of get bored with it, think, how can I use this to, you know, take my program kind of to the next level?
And kind of staying on theme, do you have any advice on how to make online sites or applications more affordable? Can insurance help with costs?
So I actually recently found out that if you have a health savings account, an HSA, I know sometimes you can use those funds to pay for rehabilitative apps. And also if you have a Medicare Advantage plan or Medicare supplemental, or sometimes even other insurance plans, they might have what they call a wellness benefit. And that also might help cover the costs of apps. And I know that at least for constant therapy, they really want everybody to be able to use their apps. And we had one of the representatives come and talk during one of our group sessions, and she said, if you know you can't afford it and you're struggling finding ways to pay for it, call us. So if you're having trouble, call their customer service and see what they're able to do for you, which I think is awesome. And I know they have a discount for veterans too.
Wonderful. We have a live question. In addition to aphasia, my spouse has cognitive communication disorder. Do you have any suggestions on how to work on both aspects? He struggles with memory, sustained attention, etc., so it makes it hard.
Yeah, so actually, I think whether you have a diagnosis of that or not, your aphasia therapy should always incorporate some sort of cognitive tasks, because it's all, again, it's all related. A lot of times your attention is affected when you have aphasia, your working memory, being able to hang on to something and play around with it. I have tons of tasks that I do. I'm trying to think of one that would be kind of, I mean, I could, if you want to get in touch with me, we can do a consultation and I can chat with you about it. But I do a lot of work with cards, even just, and it's good for attention. So I always have a deck of cards on my desk, and people get really disappointed when we're not playing blackjack. But so I will do some, again, depending on the level, just have them alternate between number and color. So 9, red, 7, black, 4. Okay, you get the point. Next level, keep it the same, except this time when the number's even, you add 2. When it's odd, you subtract 2. So you can see how it's already getting a little bit trickier. So 6, black, 5, I think I did that right, red, and so on. And then you can make it even harder. I sometimes have them switch the color and they give me the opposite color. Just depends what level you can push them to. So that's just like one example, but absolutely attention, those executive functions, planning, organizing, they're great to work on. And there's lots of things you can do.
So maybe you don't play blackjack in therapy, but what about word games? Do you recommend playing word games like crossword puzzles, or what's that popular one now, Wordle?
Wordle, yeah, I know. I think everybody's addicted to that one. Absolutely. That's a great way to, you're working on your language. There's a lot of cognitive stuff built into those. And even if you can't do it on your own, like Wordle, for example, I've suggested that for some of my patients, but they need a little bit of support. Maybe they need some of the letters filled in before they can kind of help out, or maybe once somebody knows the word, they can try to give them a cue of some sort. But yeah, those are excellent. Sudoku is a good one that I know a lot of people do. Word searches. Watch Wheel of Fortune. Try to guess the puzzle.
And this is a good time for me to plug for the National Aphasia Association. We have a game show group. It's online and it's free. Actually, our next one, I believe, is tomorrow. So if you are interested in that, that will be going on tomorrow. I think it's at noon, but I'll put more information in the chat box. And if you're interested, feel free to email me to join. Okay, my next question. So I know you do teletherapy. Who is the right candidate for teletherapy?
Anybody with a webcam and a computer. I don't think severity impacts somebody's ability to be a candidate. If they have a little bit of trouble getting online, I've never had an issue with that because somebody's been available or they're able to get online. Anybody, I think, and I think it's just as beneficial as face-to-face for the most part, if not completely.
I think we're definitely finding that through the pandemic too. So
yeah,
it's definitely becoming the new norm.
Well, and it's nice seeing people in their own environment. I mean, there's like a dog running in the background and we talk about the dog and they pop up on their lap. And I mean, it's cool. And again, talk about that generalization. It's a little bit more built in than being in a clinic room,
Definitely. So we have another question. Do you have an Instagram handle, Brooke?
We have an Instagram account. I have to be honest with you, I don't understand Instagram. And so my good colleague, Emily, controls all of that. But yes, we are on Instagram and you can follow us. It's I should look up our name. I think it's at IR Aphasia Therapy. IR Aphasia Therapy.
Oh, Emily has.
That's it. Emily did it. Thank you, Em.
Okay, our next question is, how does exercise and moving help with aphasia?
I think there's a lot of dimensions to that. I mean, I think just the blood flow and getting things moving, I think the, dopamine and serotonin, getting all that going is really good. I have some patients that I work on using their hands, the right and left piece. I know sometimes it's hard for you guys to get your yes and no's correct. Same with the rights and the lefts. And sometimes it's just about sorting that out and getting that, figured out. And it can kind of help, again, clean out not only gestures, but speech. So I like to get my patients moving a little bit at the beginning of each of our sessions. We're almost always doing some kind of hand movement gesture with a cognitive task. I have a lot of patients that walk. I think it can be really beneficial. Any exercise that's been, that you've been given permission by your doctor is a good thing.
Thank you. We are always open to suggestions from our audience for who you want to hear from. And today we've been getting a lot of questions about health, wellness, and nutrition. So we'll definitely try to find someone and keep those questions for future Ask the Experts. But also, if you have other types of suggestions, please feel free to email me. I'll put my email address in the chat box. Someone's asking if this is recorded. Yes, it will be recorded and put on YouTube, I believe on Sunday. My final question to you, Brooke, is what is one message you'd like our audience to come away with from today's webinar?
I think, don't give up. You guys do not believe in a plateau. Do not believe what people tell you that, you've gone as far as you can. With some work and some ongoing motivation, you can absolutely keep getting better. There's a lot of support out there. Sometimes it takes some work, unfortunately, to find it. But again, the NAA is doing some awesome work, trying to build their resources. We are trying to build our resources. Please feel free to check them out and let us know what's not on there that you wish was on there. We love getting those ideas. But it's a tough road, and you guys know that, but one step at a time, one day at a time, and keep working at it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being such a strong member of this community and contributing so much to us.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. To our audience, I want to thank you guys for being here today. I'm going to share Brooke's website one more time. So that is iraphasiatherapy.com, and that's where you can find her workbook and also a free trial of the workbook. There are some other great resources here too. We also encourage you to visit us at aphasia.org. If you go to resources, if you hover over find support and then online events, you will find our online events calendar. And here we have many free virtual groups. These are some really great support groups and conversation groups. Some of them are run by speech language therapists, just like Brooke. So actually, I'm going to scroll down to Brooke's. So we meet, is it once a month, Brooke?
Twice. Yep, twice a month, actually.
Sorry.
Yep.
We have so many groups, I forget when they meet. So please feel free to visit us on aphasia.org/online-events for more information. And again, I've put my email address in the chat box if you want to join anything. Thank you everyone so much for joining. We really hope to see you at the next one. Bye everyone.
Thank you.